Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Wrestle Podcast. It's time for the continuation of 2004. Yes, indeed, Manic Mondays is here to help ease you into the working week. I am your host, Frenchmen and Eddie, and joining me as always is Steve Neal.
It's Judgment Day. It's the day of judgment. Fucking biblical stuff. Mate, fucking amazing. Biblical stuff from WWE coming into, so we are off the back of WrestleMania. This is the first Smackdown pay-per-view post-WrestleMania. And since WrestleMania, Bradshaw has changed. He's not in the APA anymore, and he's got a haircut. It's which is basically the main story of this pay-per-view. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, the tagline for this pay-per-view is "Souls Will Cry." It's a bit dramatic.
I don't know, my soul cried watching some of these fucking matches, I'll tell you.
I can't wait to get into some of this. 18,722 live from Los Angeles, California, inside the vaunted Staples Center, which of course is still going today as one of the biggest and most famous arenas in the United States, especially now that Los Angeles is the place to be for basketball. And boy, were we reminded a lot about the LA Lakers during this show. Let's get right into it. Rey Mysterio and RVD versus the Dudley Boys. Certified banger alert. I thought this was great. What a cracking little opener to a interesting show.
Yeah, I enjoyed this, but it was really jarring because the last pay-per-view that we watched, which featured Rob Van Dam, he was a tag champion with Booker T. It was so weird. Like, he's with RVD now, shut your mouths. No one needs to know what's going on. He tags with every minority this year. There is nothing else that is going to happen. Next week, Tajiri! It's just, that was a bit baffling. But it's Rob Van Dam and Rey Mysterio and the Dudleys. Like, it was never going to be terrible by any stretch of the imagination. Really, really good match. The last 5 minutes in particular, as they built towards a very good finish, was particularly good. And Bubba Ray showing that he's a heel by coming down and screaming at Taz, "I used to be your friend, but we're not friends anymore." Taz being like, "Okay, I don't like you either." was great. It was, really good, fun opener to the show, as you say. It kind of set a really good standard and a really good pace, and it's not very often on a 2004 pay-per-view we've spoken good things about tag team matches on this show.
I thought it was really good, like really, really, really good, like massively underrated. It's one of these certified bangers that I think people should go back and watch in retrospect. It's actually really fucking good, athletic, really like the story told. They had plenty of time to get their shit in. Dudley Boys tend to do quite well when they get to pace the match, their kind of style. Actually, this is probably the best Dudley Boys match I've seen in this era at all from them, ever since the boom of the Dudleys and the tag team era from the Attitude Era. This is by far and away their best shine for me. Loved the little thing where RVD scooped Rey Mysterio over his head into the Frankenstein. That was fucking sick. I truly am. I'm really high on this match, probably a lot more so than even you are. I've given it 4 out of 5. I thought it was really good. Like, as far as quality of tag team wrestling goes, it was phenomenal. And for a show that is laden with weird tag teams, this was a really exciting match. Actually, I was really impressed. Got me off to the right kind of start already with this. Really enjoyed it. Got the mood flowing a little bit. Josh Matthews, of course, has to ruin that for me by interrupting Booker T. Booker T's got a bag of dirt, apparently, which he's acquired on SmackDown before this. He went grave robbing, as we'll find out a bit later. I was not aware of this. Apparently, that's a thing. Also, some black woman keeps calling him boy in what seems very, very casually racist. The whole thing seems very iffy, but he's backstage nonetheless and telling Josh Matthews that he's the star of SmackDown and he fears not no Undertaker. We'll get to that later down the line. Luther Reigns pushes out a big ass box and out pops the GM handicap angle. What the hell happened since WrestleMania? Kurt Angle's in a wheelchair. Turns out the stuff that I mentioned about his neck had come to fruition, and he needed a severe amount of time off. So they wrote him off, didn't they? Big Show threw him off the stage, broke his leg, and now he's in a wheelchair. Ha! Unlucky, Crips. Very weird. Love this. He's obviously in a very bad mood because he just takes LA down. He even says, like, "Oh, Oh, what a surprise! An overrated basketball team who won't even have their star is facing charges, and I'm like, yeah, rape charges, mate. Bit awkward, but never mind. He also says, "Do what you do best," which is riot. Rodney King. Just a lot of racism going on here. A lot of racism early in the show, and then he says, "Why don't you just have a whopping great earthquake and piss off?" I'm like, wow. He's not done there. He calls out Tori Wilson and says, "It's all your fault, you bitch. And if you don't beat Dawn Marie, you're fired." And then we get Tori Wilson versus Dawn Marie in some form of a contest. Uh, wow, we've seen some really bad women's matches since we started doing Manic Mondays. This is up there as one of the worst. This is terrible. The whole match stems around the fact that Dawn Marie's beaver almost falls out.
Yeah, I mean, that is the highlight of the match, to be honest. And to be fair, one of the highlights of the year. Tori Wilson holds a very special place in the hearts of boys in this era. Like, she basically, her and Stacy Keibler kind of succeeded, Trish Stratus as being the sex symbol in a lot of ways, because Trish was becoming much more of a developed character, was doing more in the ring. So they just needed. I was developing thanks to her. They basically wanted some more lingerie models, and so that's what Stacey and Tori's role was. And this was Tori. She'd done the centerfold with Playboy, CoverGirl, with Sable, all that stuff. But she just could not wrestle. Like, the fond memories that we have are basically over the fact that she's really fucking hot and has got phenomenal baps. Like, there is nothing else. Like, she didn't really have a character. She wasn't really anything on the mic as a wrestler as such. She was never a particularly good valet. And she literally could not wrestle. She was relatively athletic, but Stacy Keibler was more athletic than she was. Mate, it was just dross, and it was depressing to watch, to be honest. Yeah, it was not a fan at all. Like, watching this back with hindsight, when I was watching this, and if I was 14, 15 or whatever watching this, I probably absolutely loved it. I would have been 19 actually. Would I have been? Fuck no, 17 I would have been. Watching this back, I'm probably sitting there thinking, yeah, fuck it, I'm pretty randy, let's watch this. That was almost a bit of either. I was probably having a great time. But watching it back now, it's depressingly terrible.
Half a star.
That was generous.
Yeah, tell me about it. I've got down here 0.5 out of 5. Tragic, however, Dawn Marie's beaver, 4 out of 5. Sorry. Yeah, no, Dawn Marie. Sneaky underrated in the fitty department, and I'm not sure if this. I believe this is. I think is this before or after the Al Wilson scenario. I'm not entirely sure. You'd think before, wouldn't you? Otherwise, it would be very weird for them to just go back to this. But it's very weird. Like, Kurt Angle comes across looking like a colossal idiot as well. Like, oh, if you lose this match, you're going to retire. To Dawn Marie, the worst women's wrestler on the roster. Really? We just send someone evil out there. No, didn't work. Terrible backslide, gets the win. Less said about it, the better. Turns out Donald Trump has arrived in WWE in the form of Royd BL. JBL is now an immigrant hater. Wonderful stuff. Yeah, he's ditched his lovely beard. He shaved his head. He's dyed his hair, by the look of it, and he's basically become Donald Trump with a cowboy hat. So he's kind of ditched his Texan roots, hasn't he, for the more New York stock market look. And this is the first real chance we've had to see JBL in all of his glory. And his promo is, well, it goes along the lines of this: if you don't like America, then you can get it.
The thing is, as well, that's really funny about this, watching it back, is obviously he's doing this promo in California, and there's a huge Latin community that lives in California. And it's the cheapest way of getting heat. But he gets booed. If he does that promo in 2019, he gets cheered out the fucking building in America now. They'll be like, yeah, fucking Mexicans coming over here. It's just like fucking mental how the world has got worse in the last 15 years, and JBL has probably influenced it with all of his Mexican chasing antics. That was basically his gimmick, and this is a guy who's like Hall of Famer and shit. Like, it's mental. Full on, his gimmick was the cheapest of cheap heat. I am going to say, oh yeah, I'm coming up against Mexican guy, therefore I hate all Mexican immigrants. And yeah, it was just, it's fucking lazy is what it is. It is really lazy.
Prepare yourself, Steve, for a, let's be honest, a magma shifting moment in WWE history. Scotty 2 Hotty versus the debuting Mordecai. The anti-taker, or as I have written down here, looking suspiciously like the leader of the KKK. Out comes Mordecai in a way. For anyone who doesn't know who Mordecai is, because he wasn't around very long, he was essentially an anti-Undertaker. He wore white instead of black. He had a different cross. He had fire. He had a Raven-esque beard, excuse me, from Mortal Kombat. Mixed bag. Gimmick-wise, it looked like it could work. And there's a lot of story that goes behind this gimmick. Ultimately, it doesn't work. But Scotty 2 Hotty. Also, Scotty 2 Hotty, I need to take to task here. So the match is fucking terrible, as you would expect. But Scotty 2 Hotty, at the beginning of this match, right, he's supposed to sell the idea of the unknown, the fear in his eyes. And instead, he's looking at him like I imagine most Germans look at a toy in a sex shop. Just this grotesquely sexually aggressive stare. As if like, yeah. It's just very, very, very awkward. As is Mordecai. I remember being quite excited at the time because I thought they were going to debut a new Undertaker. And in retrospect, my God, this is awful.
Yeah, if anyone's ever watched Zoolander and have seen the character of Mugatu, played by Will Ferrell, they'll know exactly what Mordecai looks like. He is...
I've got a scene of Mordecai getting his latte, and he's like, "Are you not aware that I get bloated and farty with a foamy latte?" It's fucking brilliant.
It's just, yeah, it completely doesn't work. And it was one of those things where I think they were really excited and planning a big program between Mordecai and Undertaker. And I don't know who it was that said, yeah, nah, this is just not working. Mordecai is just not getting over at all. I don't know if it was Taker himself. Honestly, I have no idea. But it was one of those debuts where it was crickets. And like we've talked before on the podcast about when, you know, the Undertaker makes his debut and the kids in the audience look scared at 1990 Survivor Series. And Mordecai just came out to crickets. And whereas the Undertaker came out to this almost like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is all a bit unnerving, and everyone was a bit kind of shocked and scared. People were just like completely disinterested by Mordecai. It was completely the wrong kind of silence. Yeah, and the match was fucking trash. And really weird use of Scotty 2 Hotty, who again we saw as being like tag team guy, you know, a month or so ago with Rikishi, still doing the Too Cool shtick. And now he's out here as singles, you know, quote unquote star, Scotty 2 Hotty, going up against a debut Mordecai. Really weird choice of opponent to try and, you know, kind of build Mordecai as being someone that we should be scared of. Like, if he'd come out and jobbed out Rikishi, it would have made a much bigger impact than him coming out and jobbing out Scotty 2 Hotty. Jesus wept.
He doesn't job him out that strongly either. Scotty 2 Hotty gets a fair amount of offense in.
Yeah, he nearly does the worm and everything.
Yeah, very weird to have him go after. Scotty 2 Hotty is not a reputable singles wrestler. He's barely a reputable tag team wrestler, really. He's always fed off the charisma, so to speak, of Rikishi, and even Grandmaster Sexay ultimately had a lot more charisma than he did. He just looked like he'd been, I don't know. Yeah, it was just the worm, and also he kind of looked a little bit like he'd been electrocuted, and that was about it, really. And my residing memory of Scotty 2 Hotty is him being violated by Kane and the Undertaker at the Royal Rumble in 2001 and just looking like he'd shit himself. It's not very good. It's not a good way to get a guy over, and it's a real lesson learned. So the reason the Mordecai thing didn't work, actually, is because... so... in the original meetings, when he pitched this idea as a preacher, because he actually is from a Bible Belt state and spent a lot of his time growing up in mass churches and stuff, so he wanted to apply that to his gimmick. Vince McMahon was really hot on this. Vince McMahon loved it. He said, I feel like we've got a brand new alternative to The Undertaker. That was his thoughts on the whole scenario. Himself, Shane McMahon, John Laurinaitis, everybody had a real hand in this, even The Undertaker. Like, so the story goes, I don't know how reputable or reliable it is, but it's fairly common knowledge. If you just search Mordecai, you can find these articles all over the place. They swear blind that The Undertaker, and The Undertaker's actually confirmed this, he sort of checked out Mordecai and was like, yeah, really like him. We're good to go. Set up the feud. We'll do it at WrestleMania. Just shortly after this debut, he got in a fight in a bar in Louisville, and unfortunately it led to a lawsuit because obviously financially, hello WWE, ka-ching, this of course angered the living bejesus out of Vince McMahon. He decided to shit can him from there. Mordecai, the guy who plays Mordecai, swears blind that there was a moment right after he came out of creative where John Laurinaitis pulled him aside and said, get ready kid, you're going to be a multi-millionaire from this. That never came to fruition. You know, I could just imagine John Laurinaitis.
Burgers near you.
Just the idea of John Laurinaitis was, it's going to be a great time for you, kid. You're going to do well. It's like John Laurinaitis, the Mick McCarthy of professional wrestling. Just
an absolute insult to Mick McCarthy, quite frankly.
Mick McCarthy
has terrible eyebrows.
Mordecai's all right. He can play up front for Wolves. Hoofed up, ball up, wheels, marvellous. Just two people right now popping for the Mick McCarthy. Not even two people, just us, let's be honest. Jay Miller's frantically Googling for Mick McCarthy. Go on, lad. Yeah, it just didn't work. I didn't think the match wasn't terrible. It was just pointless. 1.5. Just boring.
So.
One thing I really did like about it was the one move where he gave him a crossface involving the turnbuckle post. I just thought that was very cool and very creative, and I was stealing that. But other than that, utterly pointless. And the mission was not accomplished, and it never was. And seeing Chavo classic in his pants is not helping matters. No. Just watch this terrible attempt at getting a guy over. Looking like B-Tech fucking Raiden from Mortal Kombat, and then I'm treated to the suspiciously muscular legs of Chavo Classic, who apparently likes himself a bit of pink lingerie. The one thing I did like about this was Jackie was actually very convincing and very good in front of the camera with Chavo, which was a surprise to me. I just come out of this whole thing feeling like Jackie is a little bit underappreciated overall as a character. I thought she was really good. She was a really good hand in the ring. She was a good character. She was very solid as well. She was very physical. Like, her physique was fantastic. She looked $1 million, as you find out a bit later. But ultimately, the content in this promo is not very smart. You know, and it's another thing where you think this ain't flying in today's age. Oh, how embarrassing! You lost to a woman. Oh, you need to dress like a girl. It's just the whole thing. Jackie does an admirable job of delivering it, and actually, I think Chavo's really funny and really passively sexually aggressive. It's really funny. It's just the way he's gonna. Oh, I'm gonna make it hurt. I'm gonna make it hurt so good. It's like, what is wrong with you? Lay off the coke, lads. I know what's in Booker T's bag. I know what you're up to. You're not getting it past me, matey. I know what you're smuggling in from people's graves. Weird. Very weird, and I cannot wait to hear what Steve has to say about the next match, because for the WWE Tag Team Championships, Charlie Haas and Rico, your WWE Tag Team Champions, with Jackie at ringside, defend against Hardcore Holly and Billy Gunn.
I actually really enjoyed this.
For fuck's sake!
I actually really enjoyed it. I found, I don't really remember Rico, like, particularly. I said that when he came out of the Royal Rumble. Who the fuck is Rico? But he was, obviously just kind of...
All homosexuals out of your brain.
Basically was Fandango. And just, like, much camper. I thought it was actually quite a funny match, because it was a bit weird that kind of Billy Gunn was having to play it straight with a lot more of the flirty stuff that was being done, if you like, by Rico, pretending to like ride him like a horse and shit. It was just fucking great. I found that to be money. I really liked the, his kind of entrance, walking down the catwalk and stuff. And Charlie Haas being like, should I walk the catwalk? It's the only time I've ever heard people chanting for Charlie Haas just to get him to walk on a catwalk. And he was like, no. And walked around it. I thought, actually, you know what? It was good fun. Again, very weird, thrown together nonsense tag teams on both sides, but fucking Bob Holly and Billy Gunn is such a weird pairing. Two guys who've been around forever, that we haven't got anything else to do with. Let's just throw them out there. Like, if you remember at the Royal Rumble, Bob Holly is going after Brock Lesnar because he broke his neck in a blood feud for the world title, and now he is in the tag team title picture, losing to Rico and Charlie Haas. Very, very weird trajectory of Bob Holly's career. I mean, I think he faced Rhino a couple of months ago as well. Very weird trajectory. I thought this match actually was kind of funny, and it was kind of a bit of a comedy match, and I quite enjoyed it. It was something different to what else was on the card. So, Rico very much made me enjoy myself. So I was like, yeah, fuck it. You know what? This is actually fun.
Yeah, actually, despite all my rage at the sight of these two tag teams, I actually thought this was a very serviceable and fun little match. Rico was very entertaining. I quite like Charlie Haas as the straight-laced guy struggling with his minute amount of charisma. I really enjoyed Charlie Haas at this point. Like you say, the crowd chanting for Charlie Haas is the weirdest and most surreal thing ever. That's never happening again. Rico, absolute money. This gimmick would be invincible on the independent circuit, and I can see why it didn't have too many legs. He ended up being the manager for 3 Minute Warning as well before this. That's probably where a lot of people remember him. Don't know if you remember 3 Minute Warning. They were a good crack.
Yeah.
It's Rico rather famously has this moment at Survivor Series 2002 where he's on the top rope waiting for Jeff Hardy, who is obviously smacked off his tits at this point, and Jeff forgets that his spot is to basically get up there and knock him off the ropes. So Rico is standing on the ropes and can audibly be heard shouting, "Jeff, for fuck's sake!" It's really funny. Really good stuff, just like the John Cena Nakamura thing from Royal Rumble. Really good fun. Really funny. Not sure what to make of Jackie. She's all right. I've seen her before. I remember her. These are all kind of, the undercard. In the way that people look at people like Heath Slater really favourably, we looked back at Rico and Charlie Haas in that kind of way. I've got to be honest, I genuinely believe this to be the best Hardcore Holly match I've ever seen. He's quite entertaining. He's game for a laugh, so to speak. He at least tries to sell the guy's offense a little bit. I also really like the beginning of the match where Billy Gunn and Hardcore Holly's like, no, you fuck off, I'm not facing him, he's gay, you facing him. He's going, he's fucking gay. And then Rico just comes over and goes, hi boys, and just grabs their asses, and they both take a tumble outside the ring like, don't touch my ass. I thought it was really funny. The crowd seemed really in favour of it as well. They
Yeah,
really
yeah.
reciprocated it well, and I thought that was really cool because that if this pay-per-view had been in Tennessee or something, lynch his ass and burn him. It just very, very strange, but ultimately quite good. I gave it. I've got 2.5 out of 5. I'm tempted to upgrade that to a 3 just because Rico did a masterful job of getting his gimmick over. I thought they were. I mean, it is weird to think they're the WWE Tag Team Champions. That illustrious pair of belts that have been held by the Hardys, Edge and Christian, the Legion of Doom, the New Age Outlaws, Charlie Haas and Rico. So
Yeah,
random.
so
But yeah,
thrown together. It's that is the nonsense part of it. So thrown together.
no, it's pretty good though. It's pretty serviceable. Undertaker delivers arguably the world's most boring promo, where he just says "Rest in peace," and Paul Heyman goes, "Oh yes!" Yeah. Paul Bearer, excuse me, not Paul Heyman. Although that would be hilarious in his own right.
That would be.
Just completely non-serviceable promo. Just typical Undertaker fare. This is your Judgment Day, Booker T. Cruiserweight Championship match. Jackie is champion, and she defends against Chavo Guerrero, who must have one arm tied behind his back.
Yes, because we can't have a woman and a man in a match together looking competitive. Also, the Cruiserweight title is to be used as a comedy prop. Who knew? How things have changed. Yeah, this was a match that occurred. I really like Jackie, and I really like Chavo Guerrero as well. I'm a big fan of both. I think they're super talent. But this was just a bit of nonsense, gimmicky kind of bollocks, really. It was better than, but it was just another example. Like, when we had that Nunzio intergender match the couple of pay-per-views ago, and it was just
Lydia and Jamie Hope.
Yeah, the blindfold.
Yeah, it was a bit like that.
Yeah, it was just kind of, okay, we're going to do a bit of intergender wrestling, but it's going to be completely gimmicky and therefore undermine the actual concept of an intergender match. And then the man has to cheat to win, so Jacqueline still looks relatively decent. But as soon as Chavo can use both hands, he's obviously going to get the win because men are dominant against women. Ha ha ha!
Yeah. I mean, one thing I did like about it was the amount of offense that Jackie took. It wasn't just a case of a lot of shenanigans, then she took one clothesline, that was it. Like, it actually took quite a bit to put her down. Chavo Classic at this point has just become a bit ridiculous and overbooked. Like, he gets involved like 3 or 4 times minimum every match, and it really ruins the basis of the heel getting heat off the crowd because he just does it so often. Like, I think it's like 5 or 6 altercations in total in this match. And that's just too many. It's way too many. Like, 1 or 2 at most is absolutely fine. But yeah, Chavo Guerrero has really worked his bollocks off in some terrible angles here. Like, even the Eddie Guerrero match, which was a good, serviceable technical match, the storyline wasn't that strong. Chavo Guerrero is getting a lot of crap thrown at him, but he's proving to be an admirable worker during this 2004 run because he's willing to pick up the slack and do the dumb stuff. And also, with the Cruiserweight title the way it is, being kind of more of a prop at this point and not a very seriously competitive title, especially if Rey Mysterio is not in the picture, because at this point they realised, hang about, Rey Mysterio could be a champion. Get him away from the Cruiserweight title. You could see them already building towards Rey Mysterio being a far more credible wrestler as opposed to just being little flippy guy with little man's belt. It was alright. It was fairly serviceable. Gory Bomb gets the win. Chavo wins the Cruiserweight Championship. It's nice to see Jackie get a little run, and for what it's worth, although it's a small bout and nobody really remembers it, it is kind of cool that she was the only woman to ever win the Cruiserweight Championship.
Yeah.
It's pretty badass in that respect, so, or at least the first. I don't know if you count is it Stevie Richards, I believe? I can't remember. There was one where Stevie Richards was playing drag, or I think it might have been Santina Morella. I have no idea. There's loads of things going on. But like you say, I think Jackie's really underappreciated overall. And I came away from this reminding myself that actually really good wrestler, really game, really good worker as well. And, to be able to say that Chavo Guerrero as well, you've got to give him credit. not many men in that position are going to say, yeah, sure, I'll let the woman go over. That was a really big, massive bone of contention, especially in that area. Especially before that. I remember Alundra Blaze, excuse me, rather famously beat a male competitor once, and there was uproar about it. It was like, what? A woman with strength? Like, you watch Tessa Blanchard now, and you think, how could we possibly have had this opinion? But we did, and Jackie was always game, and I always appreciate the fact that people like Chavo Guerrero were willing to go in there and work hard and get both of them over, because a lot of people would be like, well, I'm a bloke, I'm just going to get loads of offense in and you're going to get buried. And instead, he actually worked really hard to make her look like a credible competitor, and I really admired that. So, fair play to him. United States Championship time, baby. The Doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena, defends his United States Championship against Rene Dupree.
Yeah.
Allez le blah!
They had a rivalry that showed Rene Dupree being much more vicious and savage and throwing Cena through a table for the honor of his native France, and Cena loves America, and shit got real as soon as Rene dissed America, because for Cena that's just a big no-no. And oh my god, it was so shit. I didn't care about the build-up, I didn't care about the rivalry. Everyone did their job fine, but it was boring and bland and one-dimensional, and the worst of the mid-card. And then they have a match which is, it's okay, but it's no better than okay. And yeah, this was the kind of match that works probably only in America, in terms of, well, I'll say bad things about your country and good things about a different country, and that is going to piss you the fuck off, isn't it? Because you have to believe you're better than every nation at everything. It's just so fucking boring and overdone. And that's kind of the theme throughout, is how great America is, and it's embodied by John Cena and JBL. Those are your two ambassadors of great Americanisms. Yay! Yeah, it was an okay match. It served its purpose, but I just really didn't enjoy it. I was completely turned off to it, to be honest.
I knew Steve wasn't going to enjoy this, but I did take the liberty, as we are. Well, it was very evident that the Doctor of Thugonomics was very slowly being PG'd to fuck, because his rap was terrible, even by his standards. It was bad. Even I'm not going to defend that. However, I took the liberty of taking the lyrics from his basic Thugonomics theme music, because I thought it would be very interesting to you. So, I'm going to ad-lib. I'm obviously not going to rap, but I will read these lyrics for you because I found them very amusing. Word life, this is basic Thugonomics. I'm untouchable, but I'm forcing you to feel me.
Wow. Sure.
Also, there are some cracking lines in here. Whether fighting or spitting, my discipline is unforgiving. Got you backing up in a defensive position.
Right.
Kicking them from heavyweight or bantam. Holding camps for ransom. The microphone phantom. Teams hit the floor. This the new fight joint. Like a broken needle, kid, you missing the point. We dominate your conference with offense that's no nonsense. Nonsense! My theme song hits, get your reinforcements. We strike quick with hard kicks, ducking nightsticks. Bare knuckle men through fight pits, beat you lifeless, never survive this. Forget like Alzheimer's. Two-face rap. Walk away with four shiners. The Raw Rhymer, turning legends to old-timers. My incisors like a viper, biting through your one-liners. You Dead Man Inc., and we about to make you famous, taking over Earth and still kicking in Uranus. When you break it down, doesn't half sound horrible, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to discuss there. I think we should tweet those lyrics to John Cena every time he posts an inspirational fucking tweet. Not me, because he actually follows me, but someone who he doesn't follow should be tweeting him.
Are you one of the lucky who's followed by John Cena?
I am followed by John Cena because I'm fucking amazing. But
fair play.
I mean, because we should remind him of the time when he decided to have a very, very rapey rap as his entrance music for a number of years in the WWE while wearing championship belts. Wow, I'm forcing you to touch me. Wow, great line that. And by the way, something to do with fucking forgetting like Alzheimer's. Wow. That
Wow.
shit's flying in 2019 if he comes out with that shit now. My God. Oh, thanks for that, mate. I needed to hate John Cena slightly, the thugonomics John Cena slightly more. Thank you.
So yeah, I've got a little bit more for you, but before we do, I thought I'd delve into the complexities of such a technical affair that was Rene Dupree versus John Cena. I actually thought Rene Dupree was quite entertaining in this match. I think this is probably the best showing I've seen of him. I really enjoyed him, actually. I thought he was quite funny. Just the kind of gimmick I like. Obnoxious Frenchman. I love that kind of good stuff. I really liked in the promo build-up where he went, "The French are renowned for their war." It's like, oh dear, you really are going for it. We are not sissy men. Well, it was really funny. Just like something out of Hello, really comical, eh? It's really a shame because I think in the modern age now, Rene Dupree, they probably would be able to get the comedic stuff right. And he would actually be very into. Can you imagine Rene Dupree having it out with Big E, for instance, on SmackDown? Be hilarious, good fun. Like, there's a lot of potential there. He's 20 years old. Both of them were very green in this match. There were a couple of things that stood out. I remember John Cena went for a crossbody and flew out over the top rope. Like, I've never seen him fly like that before, and he went splat on the outside, which is probably why he didn't take many risks. And I was also surprised at the fluidity of actual wrestling. There were some moves here as opposed to just free moves. I liked Rene Dupree, liked the little prance as well, the French tickler, good fun. There was enough in it for me to say, okay, it's not a world beater by any means, but it's more than acceptable and has its place as the United States Championship match. But it also summed up the state of the mid card. Rene Dupree's going after the United States title. Scotty 2 Hotty is the first opponent for the vaunted Mordecai. Billy Gunn and Hardcore Holly are the number one contenders for your tag team. The state of your number one contenders. Even all the way up to the main event with JBL. Awful crop.
It's weird positioning. They've got Rey Mysterio and Rob Van Dam, who you would have thought being two prime candidates to be in there in that mid card. Right, we'll shove them together in a tag team. I mean, even someone like, Billy Gunn, even at this point of his career, you could do a credible build with him and Cena and put him in a position to have a match. But no, we're going to throw him and Bob Holly together and chuck that. Just very weird booking and, we're going to throw just random tag teams together. I mean, they actually have one genuine tag team on this show. That's the Dudley Boys. And they're not in a title match of any description. So odd.
Yeah, it's very odd. Very, very odd. Cena gets the win with the FU. He jumps into the crowd. And then we get treated to arguably one of the great all-time signs where somebody has a sign that says Meanest Puncher. Which I thought was great. Absolutely amazing. Now, before we move on to pastures greener, I thought you'd like another segment from John Cena's phenomenal entrance theme. This time, verse 2 is rapped by his good friend Trademark. You ain't advanced enough to process potential phonetical concepts. The objects are foreign, like Loch Ness. Sponsored a complex regardless of your finesse or your fitness. It's the condition of business. Your lame vision of the underground physical image, you're underneath to undermine your whole typical image. With the precision of percentages and the collision of sedatives, poetry, beats and mics, we untouchable like righteous sluts with no crevices.
What?
This is legitimately in this song. Streets unite, we rock right over dumber beats. Yo cats couldn't come this hot if they jerked off in the summer heat. Forget 2 takes, kill y'all birds the first time. Yo best shit ain't worthy of my filler or worst rhymes. I'm better than nice, Steve. Check the veteran stripes. Leave you beside yourself with fear. I kill you and bury you twice. Despite the cover of night, tracking your flight, like guerrilla warfare, where the grass is dense, approaching me is a quick way to get referred to in the past tense. Dead that when the light to mic is on. The crowd is dead like the intermission when you on the Titantron.
So much that's terrible with that. I mean, a lot that's terrible with that. I will give them props for getting Titantron into the rap. I don't imagine that to be easy. But like sluts with no crevices?
That's incredible. Like righteous
Untouchable?
no crevices.
With mashed up sedatives? Fucking hell. So you just date raped some fucking flat-chested woman who doesn't have an arsehole and fucking tried to molest her and then realised, hang on, oh fuck's sake, she's not got a crevice. Oh, for fuck's sake. Again. Oh, Matt, your choice of women is terrible. We keep trying to pick fucking women to date rape here, and every single time there's not a crevice. Oh my god. Oh, this is so embarrassing. For fuck's sake. Ridiculous.
This is I'm not sure if this is the peak or the ultimate downfall of our podcast. I think it's a little bit of both. This is truly a monumental moment for the pod. Kenzo Suzuki vignette. Fuck right. All I've got written down here is Jesus Christ, mate. Pearl Harbor much. Really uncomfortable. Booker T versus The Undertaker is here to rescue us all. I have got to say, this is, well, first of all, is the time machine broken? Because we're going back to No Mercy 2001. Yeah. Booker T versus The Undertaker. 3 years on, and they're at it again. This time around, Booker T's, well, his gimmick is, I'm the best on SmackDown. I'm the big star. And I'm happy to say that this is actually a really special match for me. I really enjoyed this. This is by far and away the best offering I've seen from these two against each other. And ultimately, I thought this was really phenomenal, despite some hokey storytelling. This is a case of when you have two guys who are considered superstars, you can get away with a bit of nonsense because ultimately it's not very smart, is it? It's, it's, I'm Papa Shango now. No, that's the other black guy, Vince. God damn it, they're all the same. Shut up. So, Booker T has gone grave robbing, and he's being called son by a suspiciously racially appropriated fortune teller. And yeah, he's looking for anything he can get to beat The Undertaker. Turns out a black bag full of suspicious substance will do the trick. Maybe you should have got him to snort it before the match, mate. Ultimately, though, a really good contest, and this for me was very similar to the Evolution versus Rock and Sock match from WrestleMania in the sense of, from a sports entertainment aspect, phenomenal. Really enjoyed it. Love the selling, love the facial expressions, and actually the wrestling is really strong. And this reminded me of how good The Undertaker was when he was motivated and fit and good to go. He looked good. He flew around the ring. It was a great international style spot. I use the term international. International is the term given to that spot where they normally get him in a headlock and they whip him off the ropes, duck the line, leapfrog, boom, hip toss, whatever you want to do. They did a modification of that where Booker T went for this amazing scissors kick and he ducked under and hit him with his whopper flying clothesline. And I just thought, awesome. Every now and then they just burst into pace. And I think this is a real underrated banger. I think this is genuinely one of those matches that I would implore people to go back and watch. I actually think this is the match of the night.
Yeah, it was. What was always special about The Undertaker is how he controlled the pace, or how his matches were paced. So it would be slow, methodical, zombies stumbling around the ring, and then boom, suddenly we're going to have couple of minutes of everything being 100 miles an hour, full speed, full action, and then slow it back down again. And I love that. It meant that the kind of, big high spots really meant something and felt impactful. And it was always kind of seemed to come out of nowhere and catch you a bit by surprise and catch his opponents a bit by surprise. Just made everything very credible and believable. When we talked about the match at No Mercy 2001, what we said was there was some technical wrestling. It looked like The Undertaker was enjoying the opportunity to actually do a bit of chain wrestling because that isn't something he's really had an opportunity to do before the American Badass gimmick kicked in. And he seemed to kind of be enjoying himself and showing he was actually quite good at that. There were submission moves and stuff like that. But ultimately, that whole, kind of era, that invasion era that we were covering in 2001, was a very demotivated Undertaker. And there seemed to be a real, as soon as he was in there with the WCW, in particular talent, he just was very lazy. He didn't want to put them over. He was very selfish in the way that he worked. He was clearly carrying a grudge from the Monday Night Wars, completely and utterly unreasonably. Here it's like he's got over it. He now, the respect is there. He views Booker T as an equal, as a colleague, someone who, let's be honest, not that many people survived who came over from WCW and ECW into 2004. Booker T, did and always kept himself credible, other than, the Triple H nonsense early on. So, yeah, it felt like, the Undertaker finally sort of giving him the match that Booker T deserved. Because Booker T is awesome. He really is, as we've said many times. He's fantastic. From a sports entertainment perspective, it was great. It was very weird, as you say, seeing Booker T do or try and invest in the more supernatural side to take on Undertaker. It was very weird, but it was also different. And, although different doesn't always work, I'm not going to complain about being offered something other than the same old all the time. And this was something a little bit different and a bit unusual and a bit of a departure for Booker T and a bit of extra psychology in there for The Undertaker. I agree. It probably was my favourite match of the night. It was really, really good.
Yeah, if they ever do a Best of Booker T DVD, I would really push to have this match put on there. I think it's really good. I think this is a great example as well for young wrestlers or people training or whatever for the argument of less is more. Because there's not a great deal of wrestling content in this match, but the way it's delivered, the methodical pace, this is very much what old timers bang on about when they say build to your big moves, because all the moves really feel like they matter. Everything from the punch, when he gets him in the corner, the big boot, the way he delivers the scissor kick, everything is so crisp. And even the announcers at the end put over the fact that that's incredible effort by Booker T. Nobody should really be ashamed. And this might have been one of the matches that really jolted WWE management and said, well, actually, Booker T still got a lot to offer this company. And ultimately go on to have a run not too long removed from this as, of course, King Booker. And he would have his World Heavyweight Championship run that, we believe he so deserved. It was unfortunately taken from him by Triple H and, the like from 2003. So, yeah, this is a really, really cool moment for Booker T's career because it reminded the world that actually this guy is still the business, and given the opportunity and motivated, look what he can do with someone like The Undertaker, who at this point, let's be honest, he's not just going to go out there and have a good match with everybody. He's just not. The Undertaker, even at this point, was aging, and that's, 15 years ago? Even at this point, you're thinking, he's starting to get on a bit. He's getting up to his 40s now. He's going to... They even said, didn't they, at the beginning of this match, enjoy this, ladies and gentlemen, because this is a rare appearance for The Undertaker. Not nearly as rare as it would get Michael Cole. Wind your neck in. Great stuff. Really enjoyed this. Great match, actually, to have as your penultimate match. Not often do you get the penultimate match being such a high-level, high-caliber match. By the way, I gave this 4 out of 5. I thought it was really, really good. Worthy of being in the conversation for one of the better matches of the year so far. WWE Championship to close the show. Eddie Guerrero is still our champion, thank God, at least for now. And he is defending against newly shaven JBL. You can pretty much tell what this match is about after what we heard from JBL earlier. JBL doesn't like immigrants. He doesn't like handouts. He doesn't like people, unless you're shining his shoes or selling food on the highway, because apparently that's an honest living. Which is an astonishing statement in his own right. You are basically to be deported. And of course, I don't know if you remember this infamous angle where JBL chased a load of immigrants across a field at night. It was an astonishingly racially tone deaf segment, which even now would infuriate some and probably well a lot of white men up with pride in the southern states in the United States of America. That's right, JBL, you chased that filthy penis off our land, coming over here taking our corn and whatnot. It is what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like. This is a match, and it's a good match from the standpoint of what it means, because it's very physical, it's very violent, but ultimately there are two things I remember from this match. One is a chair shot that could quite frankly derail an elephant, and two is a blade job that could derail an elephant. This is a really horrific and violent moment in WWE's history, which I have no doubt probably played a part in them moving towards PG further. This is ultimately the match that is credited with Eddie Guerrero having the title taken away from him later down the line. The pressure of being WWE Champion, as anyone who loves this business or cares about it or is even just a fan will know, is massive. You know, if you're WWE Champion, there's a lot of commitments coming out, media obligations, and on the go. It's a 24-hour job. You don't sleep. It's one thing I will give someone like a Seth Rollins or a Roman Reigns massive credit for. Very good at handling themselves when it comes to things like media outlets. Eddie Guerrero is a purist wrestler. He's not the guy you stick in front of the cameras and say, hey, go and represent our company. Eddie Guerrero is wrestling through and through. He's not a company guy in that respect. And the pressure, apparently, according to sources, was really starting to tell. He was really starting to struggle with the pressure of being WWE Champion. And ultimately, they saw this as an opportunity to maybe move in a different direction. And I think the final telling point for them was seeing the blade job, which is horrific. There is no way getting around it. It's one of those things where I don't want to implore people to go and watch it, but at the same time, it's quite important to the history, especially of this year alone. And it's fauceting from him. I've never seen blood exit somebody like this before. It's actually really unnerving. And the chair shot is horrific. It is utterly horrific. It honestly made me think Mick Foley got off light when he got clattered by Randy Orton, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's just grim. This is the kind of thing where you think, wow, no wonder so many guys now have problems just walking, or God forbid, have them horrific moments that Chris Benoit did. This is uncomfortable to watch in so many ways, and it's made worse by the fact that it's happened to probably the most beloved wrestler. Definitely top 3 or 4 beloved wrestlers in the history of this business. Eddie Guerrero is sorely missed every single day by anyone who has even a shred of care or love for this business. And this is a reminder of just how difficult and how tough and how unforgiving wrestling is as a business to its own employees. And yeah, it's really unsettling. The match isn't too bad. JBL had a reputation, if nothing else, for being a good brawler, and this was the perfect match for him. This is not a no DQ match. You would not think so, however. This feels like an I Quit match. It's so violent, and it's quite astonishing that it's not. It's just a standard match. But boy, did they take every shortcut in the book to try and make JBL look good. And credit to Eddie. I mean, he worked his bollocks off in this match. But yeah, I just can't get over the image of him laying against the wall by the announce table and that blood just pissing out of him.
Yeah, it's a difficult match to watch back, really, in a lot of ways. We know, obviously, Eddie's kind of issues with painkillers and, kind of the way in which he died. And of course you had issues with painkillers, mate. You were taking monstrous chair shots like this to the fucking cranium. Nutcase. To be fair, he does wallop JBL back as well. Gives him a couple of chair shots, actually, a kind of receipts, really. Which is completely fair and right in the circumstances. But we lambast frequently and fairly the move to PG and the fact that it has kind of nullified so much. There are certain matches and certain occasions that really do call for a bit of violence or a bit of colour in some way, shape or form. When we get in Extreme Rules, for instance, it's cookie cutter. It doesn't feel extreme at all. And, the way that they've kind of really made the promos overly scripted and all that stuff that's been part of the PG move has been kind of detrimental to the quality of WWE overall. However, moving away from horrible blade jobs and chair shots is not a bad thing at all. And I will, credit WWE for that, because although they did it entirely for PR purposes, the kind of, accidental side effect of that is it's far, far healthier for their talent. It's just horrible, because as soon as you see that chair shot, all you think is concussion, like straight away. That's what you think now, because of how much we know about CTE and all that kind of stuff. And it's uncomfortable to watch. It is. We spoke that it is uncomfortable to watch Benoit matches, for instance, because of the circumstances, around Benoit. But it's uncomfortable to watch these kinds of chair shots happen. We said that at the Royal Rumble as well. You just feel like, oh, fucking hell. With everything we know now, that is just horrible to see. We didn't know it at the time, we didn't feel it at the time, but we certainly do now. It's just fucking horrendous. The match itself, as you say, was just kind of basically a no DQ brawl. And, the one thing that it did do, that if they'd have decided to stand by Eddie for a longer period of time would really have counted for him, was made him look tough and resilient, very much in the way of Randy Orton and Mick Foley from Backlash. It was Eddie comes out with that kudos of, you went in there with one of the stiffest, hardest workers in the company, and you came out the other side still champion, and you gave as good as you got. And JBL was the one who was crawling away at the end and begging for mercy. Eddie finishes this match, even though he loses by DQ, looking strong. And it told actually a really good story. It was a very effective main event and a very effective match for both guys. It was just jarring because JBL comes out of being a tag team wrestler who was in a tag team that wasn't doing anything at that point for a couple of years of any kind of note or consequence, and goes to being a singles wrestler and is immediately in the title picture and in the main event picture. And that was always jarring to me. When you think, for instance, of Edge coming out of the tag team division, it took him a few years to get to that main event level, to learn what it was to be a singles guy and to, progress and to become more credible and legitimate in the eyes of the fans. With JBL, it was just a case of, right, he's been in the APA or the Acolytes since, 99? So 5 years he's been a tag team wrestler, and as soon as we put him in the singles division, he's potential world champion material. And as you said earlier, it just completely shows up the state of the SmackDown kind of roster at this point, because Raw kept nicking all of their best talents, and like Brock had gone, Kurt Angle was injured, and suddenly you were left with a very threadbare roster. And so JBL had to step up. But for all of the fact he's a Hall of Famer and, a WWE legend, so to speak, it was fucking cheap heat that JBL had to get. And that chair shot was it was savage. It's all well and good being stiff and physical, but it's just fucking stupid and ridiculous, and something that he's doing to pop himself or pop some dickhead out the back of how hard we can hit each other with chairs. It's just so fucking caveman. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Bit of a mixed bag for a pay-per-view. Ultimately, I thought Judgment Day was actually quite a decent watch. I go back to this thing of, there's some crap in there. But weirdly enough, the crap was relatively entertaining other than the women's match. I thought that was atrocious. I really enjoyed, for instance, Rico. I saw this match and thought, oh no, you're gonna get panned, and it actually ended up being okay because I had no expectations for it. And again, I always harken back to this: under 3 hours makes a huge difference. This pay-per-view is 2 hours 37 minutes. Okay, so if there's some matches on there where you think, oh Jesus Christ, Bob Holly and Billy Gunn, doesn't matter. 2 hours 37, tight, succinct, easy to watch in one sitting. That's what our pay-per-view should be, not these 4-5 hour extravaganzas. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous what they do now with these lengthy events. And I get why they've not really got any body to answer to, have there's no premise for a shorter show, but sometimes less really is more. I get told this all the time at training: less is more, less is more. I've been told this my whole life about so many different things, and when it comes to WWE and pay-per-views, this really is the case. Less is more. Ultimately, it's okay. It's quite a good show, actually. I'd probably say 3 out of 5 overall if I was pushed to rate the whole pay-per-view. But there's some great matches on here. You know, Undertaker versus Booker T is a must-watch match. RVD and Rey Mysterio versus the Dudley Boys ends up being arguably one of the most underrated tag matches you'll probably see all year. There's the iconic moments that involve, you know, for better or for worse, people like Eddie Guerrero, for instance, blading and being hit with these vicious steel chair shots. This was the first opportunity to see JBL in an elevated position, for better or for worse. We also got to see a real trial by fire for the United States Championship and the mid-card belts in general, with people like Rene Dupree and Hardcore Holly and Rico, you know, really getting a run and a crack at things. It was a very weird time for SmackDown. They were obviously very reliant on very few stars. And like you say, Raw just pilfered everything they could. At this point, you could probably see that Paul Heyman was really struggling creatively to hold things together, and ultimately, he would end up being shit-canned not too long after this, and then coming back, of course, with a very successful one-night stand the following year for ECW and their reunion and their reboot. But ultimately, this is actually quite a decent pay-per-view, and it's one that I didn't expect to be any good, especially if you looked at the matches beforehand. Going in blind made it a bit easier for me. But ultimately, if I'd seen this card beforehand, I would have shit all over this like a typical Smarky fan. And there was still some quality there and some content. So 3 out of 5, good pay-per-view, worth a watch for at least 2 or 3 matches. And ultimately, it keeps things ticking over. It wasn't horrible, and the things that were horrible, luckily, were short, so I could get past them quick enough and get back to the decent content of the show.
Yeah, overall, I thought this was a pretty good show, but it was one of those where, again, although the tag matches were both, to be fair, entertaining, the tag division is non-existent as an actual tag team division. The women's, you know, section of the pay-per-view is absolutely horrific yet again. And as you say, the roster's just looking a little bit threadbare, but you do get these glorious kind of moments, and JBL's actually one of the guys that we didn't talk about when we first started talking about 2004, and we were saying, you know, this was the year that Randy Orton really came to prominence. This was the year that Eddie Guerrero had the title, and there was the big moment for Redacted, and we didn't talk about the fact that JBL kind of actually goes out on his own and starts to rise towards, you know, being a main event player, where he would, you know, stay for a few years. He would be in and around that level. He's just one of those guys that we've forgotten, and I never really enjoyed JBL as a champion, and I never really enjoyed JBL as a character. I quite liked Bradshaw in the APA because his involvements were short, you know, right, big, you know, Hoss, battering ram, you know, forearms and clotheslines and power bombs. And then, you know, he's out of there in 5 or 6 minutes, and, you know, he's only in the ring for half of that because it's a tag team match. I enjoyed that Bradshaw. I enjoyed the Bradshaw who was sitting and pissing about and smoking cigars and drinking beer and playing poker. He was entertaining. And what we got with JBL was just cheap and quite boring and predictable and not great at all. And he's actually, I believe, factually speaking, the worst drawing, I think maybe second actually, other than Kevin Nash, one of the worst drawing WWE champions of all time, relatively speaking. And I can understand why. There was nothing that made me want to tune in and watch JBL as a champion. But yeah, this was a very much sort of symptomatic of 2004. It was a very thin roster, you know, especially when you compare to now, where they were trying to avoid giving you a lot of repetition, but it meant having really weird matchups and really weird tag teams. And yeah, you know, at the end of the day, we did get to see history being made with the debut of Mordecai. And that's something that we can all go home and fap about, because we're talking about one of the all-time goats of WWE.
Yeah, not really much else to add, to be honest, mate. Is there anything you'd like to close the show with?
Only that Mordecai is the most underrated WWE superstar of all time and the greatest WWE guy to never win the world title. I think that pretty much sums it up.
If you keep this up, I will repeat the lyrics of John Cena's rap over and over.
Please, God, no!
Oh dear. Well, sluts and sedatives aside, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a banger of a Manic Mondays, and of course we will continue on with the storyline that is 2004 all the way to the end of that year before moving on to another story arc from Manic Mondays. Steve Neal, thank you very much for joining me to discuss Judgment Day 2004.
Oh, no worries, man. It's always a pleasure getting to do these little jaunts down memory lane.
Yes, indeed. They pretty much are the highlight of what we do at the podcast. But don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, of course, every Thursday we have a State of Wrestling address. And of course, this week, probably going to be a fairly quiet one, especially as I'll be... Well, actually, no, people won't know that anyway, will they? I would have moved by now. So, yeah, I'm in a new house. Everybody send me shit because I'm poor. But yeah, don't forget, every Monday, every Thursday, podcast dropping fresh and plentiful. Of course, if we do have a heavy weekend when it comes to independent wrestling or covering shows of a pay-per-view nature, then sometimes we give Manic Mondays the rest, but we will let you know in due course if that is the case. But from myself and Roseanne, from Steve Neal, thank you very much for listening to Manic Mondays, and we will catch you very soon for more content from the Wrestle Plug.